Joel, please get up.
Oh, man. Man, using a golf club to impale somebody, hope it wasn't a pitching wedge. Broken bones can cause compartment syndrome, which decreases blood flow to the arm. One death's too many when it comes to that. I would not kill an individual to develop a vaccine. Hi, I'm Dr. Jordan Wagner. I'm a board-certified emergency medicine physician. I work in multiple ERs in the LA County area. Today we're going to review some gameplay from The Last of Us Part 2. And guess what? Today you're going to see me in HD.
Why don't you say whatever speech you got rehearsed? Get this over with.
Tourniquet his leg.
Tourniquets are to stop blood loss, everybody. But a lot of people try to use a belt. Don't use that as often. A cloth and a stick wrapped around will work a lot better than just using a belt because people continue to bleed a lot after. And it's extremely painful, as you can tell just by the video game here. In real life, just as painful because you're cutting off blood supply to that area and you don't want to leave it on too long. Otherwise, you're going to cause what we call ischemia or decreased oxygen to the tissue. People who place a tourniquet on a leg sometimes think, oh, I'm going to lose my leg. It's just to slow the blood flow so we can actually potentially fix any of the vascular problems. Sometimes you do need to do amputations either above the knee or below the knee if that is the last resort.
You don't get to rush this.
Taking a golf club to the head probably caused some internal bleeding. That guy's not doing so well. And this guy just took a golf club to the head. Could cause a skull fracture, bleeding inside the brain, concussions, all different levels depending on the force of trauma to the brain and to the head itself. And obviously some lacerations bleeding to the outside of the head.
Joel, please get up.
Oh man, looks like he's dead. Man, using a golf club to impale somebody, hope it wasn't a pitching wedge. You know, you can actually severely injure somebody. All depends on the force. Obviously it needs to go through tissue, which is difficult, but if you have enough force, you'd be able to probably get through and cause more damage. Where she hit him, could that have killed him? Maybe, but with all that head trauma too, unfortunately for that guy.
Come on, little dude.
A lot of people get these type of flashbacks when they have a traumatic event like she has experienced, something called PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Basically, your body's remembering, your brain's remembering, and you have different reactions, mentally, physically, emotionally. There's a lot of people in the military go through this. Anybody who goes through this, who goes through a traumatic event in life, even physical or mental abuse, and we treat people with this type of disorder every day in the emergency department. I personally treated many people, and even healthcare workers who see many people die on a daily basis, experience these things, and there are multiple different ways to treat it as well as do different therapies to help people cope with these experiences. Right into the jugular and the carotid. So there's multiple vessels that are sitting right there, the vein and the artery. The artery goes up, which is carotid artery, and the jugular vein goes down. That was a good amount of bleeding. It doesn't squirt out, obviously, like that, like a big gush, but when you hit the artery, it's a pump right from your heart, so it spurts in a pulsatile, rhythmic way, and then when you have a venous injury or the injury to the vein, it kind of just slowly pours out because it's not a pressurized system. And then obviously you have your esophagus, your trachea, multiple muscles in that area, and multiple nerves, which nerves that go to your heart. So there are multiple things that can severely injure you and kill you. A lot of times you need to go to the operating room to see what was injured and what you can fix. Hopefully they'll die before that opportunity happens and they need to be rushed emergently to a hospital or to get care right away to stop the bleeding. You definitely have blood supply on the other side so you won't die immediately, but it needs to be addressed. Oh, direct shot to the neck. Oh man, again, the squirting of the blood actually hitting somebody directly in the middle. There's one small vessel there that will bleed, but it won't squirt out like that. It's more of a vein with a little artery versus the sides of your neck. You have the major blood vessels. That's going to injure the trachea, the esophagus, and the knife that went that deep, maybe even all the way into the spinal canal, into the back, and can cause some paralyzation. But the amount of squirting blood, not as much in real life, but you need to be able to see it in the video game. Ooh. More direct hit to the side of the neck. And that was what you would particularly see with that amount of blood, because she left the knife in, so it's still what we call tamponading the vessel, so it's not fully lacerated, but there are multiple other structures in there that are injured and can cause somebody to die.
There's no way to remove the specimen without destroying the host.
The host. She's a child, not some petri dish.
You think I don't...
Oh, they're discussing a child that potentially is a key answer to fighting this parasite fungus, but they want to kill the child versus trying to save millions of people because of one death. But one death's too many when it comes to that. I would not kill an individual to develop a vaccine. There are other options. There are other ways to go about it. You can get tissue samples, blood, plasma, all different ways without sacrificing somebody's life. Oh man, it's people hanging. It looks like they were strangled to death. Oh, she's getting strung up too. So in this instance, the strangulation is cutting off blood supply to her brain, and it's slowly compressing down on her trachea. The length of time, how long somebody could last, can be minutes to hours, all depending on how tight something is around the area. You basically have your two major blood vessels going to your brain, which are your carotids, and then you actually have decreased blood flow going back to your heart. Ow! So they're breaking this person's arm. That is a very mean way to break somebody's arm. The radius and the ulnar on the forearm, and then the humerus right at the elbow. Multiple structures in there. Won't be able to bend that arm afterwards. And now this lady who's continuing to be strangled, they're trying to hold her up to take pressure off of her neck. People who typically die quickly from being strangulated or have something around their neck is actually because they're dropped and they snap their vertebrae, severing their spinal cord, which then kills them, versus this is strangulation, which is a lot of weight. So it all depends on the weight of the individual, the strength of the muscles of the neck of the individual, and basically the material that actually is being used. So there's multiple factors of how long it would take for somebody to asphyxiate and die based on strangulation via a rope. This poor arm that was beaten by a hammer, there's multiple fractures, there's probably internal bleeding because there's major arteries that go through that area, as well as nerves. Wouldn't be able to feel anything, what we call distal to that injury. Thank goodness she was cut down. Now she can actually breathe. She's going to have a lot of what we call ligature marks around the neck, a lot of bruising, and a lot of redness in the neck, which is also called petechiae, where ruptured blood vessels on the skin's tissue. That looks really, really painful. The subsequent injuries after the hammer to the arm, broken bones can cause compartment syndrome to the forearm, which then can cause limb ischemia, which decreases blood flow to the arm, and the arm could be lost and might need to be cut off, versus a lot of trauma to a certain area could also cause infection of the tissue, where the body's defense bacteria can actually start eating itself.
I'm gonna move it, okay?
Ah, got it. So it looks like she's probably trying to put it back into place. If a fracture is what we call displaced, you definitely have to put it back into what we call anatomical alignment and put it back into the correct place as best you can. We have the advantage of using x-rays and knowing if putting it back into place worked, but we do this all the time in the emergency department. When somebody fractures a bone that's displaced, you need to realign it, make sure you have what we call neurovascular integrity still there. That way people do not lose the limb due to injured vessels or nerves. And then you need to splint it afterwards. They're covering it up, but you can use anything, sticks, wood, to splint it and to keep it from flopping back out of place, because typically that will happen if you don't stabilize it. And they're feeling the tissue there, seeing if there's basically tension to the area for compartment syndrome. They're asking if she can feel or touch it. If you get compartment syndrome, you're not going to be able to feel because your nerves are compressed. For treatment of compartment syndrome, basically there's too much pressure in the arm, so the emergent treatment for that is actually to take a scalpel or a knife and cut open the different compartments. It's kind of grotesque, but an analogy is when you have a hot dog and you slice it open and it kind of pops open. That's kind of the same idea, because there's so much pressure you need to relieve it, or the arm is going to be lost due to decreased blood flow. Oh, looks like the arm is gone. So it doesn't look like they were able to save the arm due to probably infection and compartment syndrome. And unfortunately, it's very common to require an amputation of a limb, and even amputation is more complicated than you think of just cutting something off. You need to tie off blood vessels, you need to clamp nerve so you don't have something called phantom limb syndrome, that you think it's still there. And then again, you need to cover up the bone because the bone will bleed as well. So you need to be able to have enough tissue to cover up the bone. It's pretty complex other than just straight amputation of the limb. Oh! Slice to the back, into the muscles. Oh, right into the side of the face, okay. As long as it doesn't hit any major vessels, you can keep going. See the side of the face, no major organ or vessel hit. Oh man, okay. Arrow to the upper left chest, which is just above the heart. Could have hit some vessel of the heart, but there are some arteries up in that area, which can cause a lot of damage. And then she's pushing in and then ripped it out. That could actually, again, not tamponade it and have a lot of bleeding. Oh man, okay. A hit to the artery on the neck could kill you, and then into the face. The eye doesn't bleed that much, but you're going to have some injury to the skull and into the brain if you're able to go through. And again, she hit the arteries in the neck again, which if you hit the arteries enough, there's enough blood loss, you're going to pass away and die. Oh, tied up by the ankle. Oh no, an impaled object right into the hip. Oh man, down into that right lower quadrant where everybody knows the appendix is. You wouldn't hit it with that, but you're always worried about intestinal injuries that low, and then you can get an infection into the body because it's fecal matter that leaks out if you puncture the intestines, and obviously the wound on that area. Also, if it goes deep enough, you got major blood vessels. But hanging upside down, definitely not good. You get all the blood kind of draining out of your body, and then eventually you could potentially pass out from being upside down so long. Oh! Laceration to the face. Oh man, into the shoulder. That'll go right into the head of the humerus. Wouldn't cause too much damage. A lot of soft tissue damage, lacerating the skins. Just going for the neck again. Oh, this time with the heart. Oh! Ow. Just through the sternum, or right next to it. Damage right into the heart. If you take it out and you injured one of the atrium or the ventricles of the heart, you're not going to live very long because you're going to start bleeding around the heart, causing cardiac tamponade, which is basically blood around the heart compressing down on the heart, so you won't be able to squeeze anymore, and then you will die. Okay, trying to drown somebody, basically decrease oxygen. Oh, fingers in the mouth. Oh my gosh, just bit off 2 fingers. You could potentially do that, but the amount of force that you need to do that is probably so much. I've never seen somebody bite somebody else's fingers off, but maybe if they're already broken and you don't have to bite through the bone. We know that different people can bite through bone, and the bones of the fingers aren't solid. They have bone marrow in the middle, so potentially could bite through it. But that's pretty intense. Hey everyone, thanks for watching the review of the gameplay of The Last of Us Part 2 with me, Dr. Wagner. I hope you enjoyed it, hope you learned something. The game was very well done from a graphic standpoint. It was a little too real for me. The injuries, the blood, and the gore were very similar to what we see in real life and what we see comes to the emergency department. If you want to see more, check out Gameology on YouTube and Facebook, as well as Gameology Facebook channel. Facebook channel. A lot of times I said too much stuff and they're like, he's sick, sadistic doctor. Oh yeah. Yeah, he must be a psychopath. Yeah, that's right. So I was like, yeah.